You know, out of all the things I planned on talking about on this channel, animal rescue content, Godzilla, Red Dead Redemption, one of the last things on that list is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At this point, it's certainly no hot take to say these movies are not that great these days. I'd argue most of them weren't all that great anyways, but regardless, there isn't a whole lot I can discuss regarding the decline in quality of this franchise that hasn't already been discussed. Some of it comes from a place of genuine love and motivation to see these movies great again. Some of it also comes from a deep-seated hatred for Disney and wanting every film distributed by them to fail so they can lose as much money as possible. I'm not here to say there's anything morally wrong or right about either of these standpoints, but today I saw something that restored my faith in not only Marvel movies, but Hollywood in general, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Not because its visuals were actually good, not because its script was great, not because its villain was remarkable, not even because it finished the stories of these characters in a satisfying and compelling way. No. This movie stood out among the rest because it has one of the most progressive messages I have seen in Hollywood. Rocket Raccoon is the heart of this film, and to me he's always been the heart of the whole team. We've always known his story was a brutal one, but now we get to finally see it for ourselves, and along with it, James Gunn's true message of animal rights and the cruelty of animal testing. My name is Valentino, and this is why Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is an animal welfare masterpiece. We live in a strange world, don't we? We humans have empathy and compassion, yet there still exists suffering en masse throughout the planet, a world where the overwhelming minority have complete control of the overwhelming majority. A world where we say we're against suffering and cruelty, yet consume and contribute to it on the daily. The very first scene of Guardians 3 is the absolute gut-wrenching cruelty Rocket was subject to as an actual baby. His first words he was even able to utter was, "hurts." I want you to imagine what it's like to be Rocket in these moments. A baby. A helpless, confused, terrified baby, cramped in a small space, surrounded by others just as confused and afraid, with the hand of abuse looming over your very being. In his own words from the first movie, taken apart and being put back together when you never even asked to be born. Rocket's friends were just as badly abused and neglected as he was. It was what brought them together. Lila, Teefs, and Floor were his only company, the only thing he knew he could rely on and care for. The evolutionary may have acted like a father figure to him, but even from a young age, Rocket knew him as the monster he truly was, and his gaslighting and constant verbal assault only sealed the raccoon's hatred for him. I ended up crying quite a few times throughout this movie, not only because it's very funny, but mostly because its emotional beats hit harder than anything else I've seen in this subgenre. The Guardians movies were always good at grounding their characters and rooting their emotions to something much more realistic and relatable than Pretty Boy Thor or Boy Scout Cap. It was what made these batch of misfits stand out amongst the rest of the Marvel catalog. But what made the emotional scenes in this movie, the ones focused on Rocket's origins and his upbringing, so powerful, was how grounded in real-world scenarios the entire story really was. Sure, there are no corporations with a mass of cybernetic animals that can speak fluent English and learn the complex machinations of a magic box filter or whatever, but in our world animals are constantly subject to the same cruelty, if not worse, as Rocket and his friends. As stated before, it is every day that we contribute to their suffering, but not every day that we even give it a thought. Of course, there is the obvious, such as the meat industry causing violence and cruelty like no human could possibly imagine being done to very sentient and self-aware creatures that can feel both physical and emotional pain, whilst also subjecting their human workers to a similar level of neglect, often with their mental health being ruined as their labor is exploited. The dairy industry has less of a general consensus on what is considered cruel or abusive, and that is largely due to the fact that people just don't know where their milk comes from on a factory farm. Mothers being forcibly impregnated and having their babies ripped from them to be shipped to slaughter over and over again before dying prematurely, usually due to an udder infection. The fur industry uses some of the most inhumane and repulsive acts of cruelty I have ever seen. There are often wild-caught animals that are subject to this violence, and the ones that are raised in farms are crammed in cages before being ripped of their flesh so someone else can wear it to look fancy. The chilling thing about this particular field is that raccoons are a very common victim of this trade. Finally, we get to the most prevalent side of animal cruelty related to this movie, the animal testing labs. Often used for makeup or chemical testing, these animals live lives almost identical to that of Rocket and his friends, only instead of a promise of a new world, they feel fear, hunger, and confusion all their lives as they slowly die of whatever is being tested on them. You would think by now the best way to test products for humans would be on humans, but we continue to subject innocent creatures to it when their bodies and their responses will likely differ heavily from our own. The most gut-wrenching scene in this movie for me was Rocket's breakout. He learns the new world the evolutionary promised was never meant for them, and passes the knowledge on to them, and when they are caught, Lila is killed, her last words being "Sky," as all she really yearned for was the very freedom she believed was promised to her and her friends. As she lays on the ground dead, Teefs has a panic attack while a terrified Floor tries to get Rocket back in the cage so he also doesn't get hurt, only for both of them to be killed in the crossfire. Not a single soul knew the kind of pain that they went through, and now they're dead. Except for Rocket. At the end of this movie, it is him that sees experiments just like him locked in cages and condemned to death. It is when he sees baby raccoons that were just like him, where he finally breaks the cycle of abuse and violence and frees them. In the end, the Guardians not only stopped the evolutionary, but freed all of his remaining victims. Animals, aliens, and humans alike were all given a new opportunity of life thanks to him. When he nearly dies earlier in the movie, he sees his friends in heaven. Lila tells him he still has a purpose, and that this was his story the whole time. Here we learn she's absolutely right. He stopped the evolutionary's reign of terror. He stopped the cycle of violence and hatred. That was his arc, and it was a damn powerful one. When I see headlines about upset parents regarding this movie's PG-13 rating and how disturbing some of the subject material is, it makes me incredibly disappointed, because these same parents know the real cruelty that's just like this that they contribute to, that they encourage on a daily basis. Part of me can't help but think they're more scared of their children learning the truth about what happens to animals. Because when you're a child, you don't come to the assumption that a dog is a higher life form than a pig, or a cat above a raccoon. They see life as life. It is the society we grow up in that conditions us to think this way. That it's okay to take the life of something that feels pain, feels emotions, and clearly doesn't want to die if it results in a product for you to consume. That it's okay to subject an innocent life form that merely wanted to survive because we ended up with the polio vaccine. They clearly deserved it more than the millions of rapists, pedophiles, and murderers in custody because animals are beneath man. What astounds me so much about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, even more so than the story, the action, the visuals, or even the music, is this incredibly bold and powerful message that animals deserve rights. And while I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a pro-veganism movie, it is easily the most effective way to support this message. Because if you found Baby Rocket and his friends being tested on in these sickeningly vile and evil ways too much for PG-13, you'll surely agree that the same caliber of suffering, if not even worse, that's done to real raccoons, to real rabbits, and billions of farm animals is too much for the real world. Stop the cycle of abuse. Stop contributing to cruelty. Be like Rocket Raccoon. And that note will bring us nicely to the conclusion of this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I do have a lot more to say about this movie, so if you guys want to see a follow-up that's sort of an actual review of the movie in of its own, please let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, consider liking and subscribing if you like what you're seeing. My name is Valentino, and have a great day.